Edgar Wright is hands down one of the best working directors today. He has directed some of my favorite films, including the Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim.
Is Scott here?
You know what? He just left.
There's no director I can think of that can match the visual complexity that this man has achieved. When it was announced his first movie in 4 years was going to be a horror film, I was really excited. Then it wasn't very good. I left the theater feeling so frustrated and disappointed. Like any Edgar Wright film, it is extremely well directed with a lot of production value. But holy shit, the screenplay is horrendous. It feels like an overproduced student film with its unbelievably obvious thematic imagery. I'm surprised more people didn't have strong feelings about this movie, because it feels like it kind of just came and went. It seems like the studio didn't know what to do with it as the movie was released in October, because they tried to sell it as a horror movie, even though it is not scary. Anyway, the movie was a huge bomb and people just moved on. Well, I can't move on. I'm gonna give this movie the critical railing it deserves. Before we get into it, fair warning, I'm gonna talk a lot about how exaggerated everything is, but I need to make clear the issue here is tone. While there are jokes, this movie is the most serious thing Edgar Wright has ever made. All of his films clearly establish they are not set in a realistic world, while Last Night in Soho, despite being a supernatural horror film, takes itself so seriously that anything that could be passed as a comical exaggeration whiffs super hard. I'm also going to be talking a lot about the logic present in the writing. Some may say the movie is supposed to be dreamlike, and my well-researched response is, no it isn't. This ain't Mulholland Drive. Dreamlike ain't an excuse to be lazy. The movie opens with a very strong visual sequence showing our main character Ellie dance around in a newspaper dress. Clearly this establishes she likes fashion and has an obsession with the past. It is a little odd for the tone of a horror film, but at least it is trying something new. However, any goodwill is immediately gone once anyone starts talking. The main problem with the film, as stated before, is the screenplay. I had a similar problem with Baby Driver, but it is more egregious here. Baby Driver's story is clearly an excuse to show off its slick visual style. It is just trying to be a fun heist crime film, and that is fine. If you take time to look deeper, you do begin to notice how thinly written the characters are, but the movie moves at a good pace, so that is not a detriment. Last Night in Soho tries to have themes, but they all end up falling flat on their face, mostly due to how much you are hit over the head with them. This dialogue between Ellie and her grandma is painful exposition to set up things later, and it doesn't feel natural at all.
I'm just saying, London can be a lot. It was too much for your mum, perhaps.
It is so drawn out for information that is so obvious. The grandma points out things like how Ellie's mom is dead or that London is dangerous. Ellie says she will be fine because she wants to go to fashion school there. This is then, ridiculously, followed up not 3 minutes later where Ellie happens to get into a cab with a creepy man who makes rude comments.
You could be a model, couldn't you? You got the legs for it.
In the last scene, she was like, I can handle it, but then immediately runs away when a guy says, nice legs. There's a lot of awful men in the world, but maybe this type of interaction could have been saved for when she gets to the dorms or something, and not literally the first male character she shares screen time with. Once she arrives at the dorms, she meets her roommate, Jocasta. The second this character was introduced, I knew this movie was going to be rough.
Like it's way more singular to be known by just your Christian name. You know, like so famous in your work that you can literally just go by Kylie. Minogue. Jenna.
She is easily the worst written character, not in just this movie, but any Edgar Wright film. I am so tired of the bitchy fake mean girl trope. Here it feels like Edgar Wright is venting about some girl who rejected him in school. Every single scene she is in just constantly screams how vile and toxic she is, with no other aspects to her character. While this is a problem with most characters in the movie, Jocasta just feels pointless. You can say, oh, she needs to be that way to get Ellie to move out, but you could just have Ellie feel lonely because she has nothing in common with anyone. Jocasta could be replaced with just a nice girl who has different tastes than Ellie, or maybe she is introverted so they don't really bond and connect. She could be removed from the story and nothing would change. Jocasta is not necessary and just feels mean-spirited and goes against what you are trying to do with this movie since she gets absolutely no depth or dimension. She only exists to torment Ellie, sometimes even stops what she is doing just to make Ellie feel shitty. Bullying is a real thing, I know, but this kind of character is just such a lazy addition. Kind of undercuts your whole movie about how women are treated when you have one of your only women characters with a name act like a Darman villain.
So hot. Yeah, and I love how they go with your new bag.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that I could wear it with this one outfit.
Oh my god, wow, is that a bloody bouche Girard?
Oh, good eye. Yeah, well, before she sold out, I moved to Longboat, obviously.
Yeah.
Plus, most of this stuff has hardly been worn. Look.
No, I could never wear someone else's old smelly clothes. That's disgusting.
Seriously, ew.
Yeah, she literally made the outfit she's wearing. How amazing. All of us turn up in our Sunday best, and she's here rocking her own design.
Haha, so funny, she wears designer while Ellie makes her own clothes. That is so weird for someone to make their own clothes at a fashion school. This annoying, obvious writing also spreads to her little crew who only exist to laugh and sneer at Ellie. I don't want to sit on this for too long, but I just want to say these characters made me want to rip my hair out for how basically they are written and portrayed. This leads into a big problem with the film, as it takes itself so seriously, so anything that is supposed to be comedic or exaggerated just falls completely flat. Ellie is like a deer in the headlights whenever confronted by the slightest creepiness from a guy. Weirdo cabbie makes comments, she hides in a store. Creep in a bar makes gross comment, and she runs away. Wright's movies are usually laced with comedic elements, so anything portrayed like this is usually a joke. Here, it makes Ellie feel like an exaggerated version of a person instead of a sympathetic protagonist of your murder mystery story. Anyway, Ellie sees a man in the mirror. This makes no sense given how the story works, but oh well, just move on. Oh no, the mean girls talk about Ellie in a bathroom not knowing she is there. Never seen that before. More student film vibes as Ellie happens to come across multiple random pictures of sexualized women. Do you get the point of the movie yet? Ellie walks away from the group set to triumphant music, making you think she is going to set her own path. This is the perfect leeway to get to the meat of a plot where she moves out of the dorms. Instead, we get more emphasis about how awful Jocasta is, and how innocent Ellie is, who is so pure she wraps herself in her comforter to go sleep in the public common room. Stuff like this just drags the pacing as the movie just constantly reiterates the same themes over and over during this opening act. Finally get to the apartment where we get more extremely obvious and unsubtle foreshadowing and setup.
How long have you lived here?
Oh, a long while.
Must be worth a lot now.
I could never sell it. Too many memories.
And a small bit of praise, this apartment has some nice visual aesthetic, with the flashing red and blue neon sign, giving it a very distinct look, and creating a visual that helps the slip into the dream world. In Ellie's first night in the new apartment, we get into the supernatural aspect, as she starts to have dreams of being another person named Sandy, coincidentally, in London in the 60s. There's a lot of neat visual tricks involving mirrors used all throughout the film. It is very slick and seamless. Sandy, wanting to be a singer, becomes involved with Jack, a man vaguely established as someone who manages a lot of girls. There's a pretty well made dance sequence where we see Jack work out and dance. Moving on. There's a pretty well made dance sequence that shows why later in the film, Ellie clings to Sandy's life. Sandy is confident and radiant, something Ellie aspires to be. Finally, some subtle character 30 minutes into the movie. We get some more dialogue of men being creepy to show us that Jack is one of the good ones.
You can keep your little whore. What did you call the lady?
However, if you're smart enough to read and write, there is no way you can be fooled into thinking this is going to work out. This movie is just so predictable that you wait for it to catch up to what you know is going to happen, making the pacing painfully slow. We then are shown Sandy was a previous tenant of the apartment Ellie was renting. Now, whenever she sleeps, she experiences a night in the past through Sandy's perspective. The next day, in established Jocasta's mean scene number 323, we find Ellie has a hickey on her neck, something that only happened in her dream. Again, this doesn't make any sense given that this establishes a rule that is never followed later. But we will get there. I feel like this is the best time to bring up John. John is another student who is super nice, and that is his character. Every scene he is in just establishes how nice he is. He's like the inverse of Jocasta with how much depth he is given. The script then finally gets to the valid question of how does Ellie afford all these things? We establish her coming from a humble upbringing, yet she has enough money to buy all these new clothes and an apartment. She goes to get a job in a local bar after she has already acquired all these things. Usually, when I make big purchases, I worry about affording it before, not after, but that's just me. We then get a proper intro for the best actor in the movie, Terrence Stamp, who you may recognize from such hit films as Superman 2 and Yes Man.
And on most nights you're so bored and filled with ennui, you can't even summon the enthusiasm necessary to masturbate. Am I right, Carl?
He's like this mysterious old drifter who says vague and sexist things to Ellie.
I'm talking to you, Blondie.
Sorry, I have to be somewhere.
I'm not trying to pick you up, sweetheart. Don't worry.
Like everything else in this movie, they keep insisting he is creepy, instead of letting you, the audience, think he is creepy.
Who's your mother?
My mother's dead.
I thought she might be. Most of them are.
What does that even mean? Ellie then goes home and has a brief conversation with her landlady, who says this.
Bit 60s.
You play a lot of that music, don't you?
Is it too loud?
Not at all, but what's that about? It's more my time than yours.
So, unless you were in kindergarten, you can probably connect some dots at this point. This lady keeps getting scenes, runs the same building Sandy used to live in, has a strict rule against male visitors in the evenings, and mentions that her time was the 60s. Get it? Do you get it? Okay, if you don't, y'all are going to be really shocked later. Speaking of Sandy, Ellie's dream begins to take a dark turn when it is revealed Sandy is being exploited by Jack, who filled her head with false promises of stardom. This sequence also shows the dream's lack of consistency, as Ellie is usually supposed to be Sandy, right? Now she is just an outside observer for some reason? Wow, what good writing. Way to set up stakes and mystery by using a supernatural force to easily force-feed the audience information like toddlers. Also more lack of subtlety with the song choice.
There is never a doubt just who's pulling the strings.
Sandy is then propositioned by Jack to sleep with a wealthy man. This heavily implies Jack has, without her consent, become her pimp. She runs away in a very well-directed sequence. I'm going to repeat this many times. The visuals of this film are very impressive, but it is all flash with no meaning. If you try to search for it, things get very questionable. We then get into one of the huge miscalculations of this movie when it decides to tackle sexual assault. Look, no offense to Edgar Wright, but I think white male directors over the course of history have said enough about sexual assault against women. It is clear where Wright is taking inspiration for this movie from such filmmakers like Dario Argento and, sadly, Roman Polanski. The issue of why these horror scenes don't really land in this movie is that Last Night in Soho is too slick for its own good. You watch these older neon-tinged movies, they can have this raw, sickly quality to them that adds to the disgust of the situation. Edgar Wright, with his camera whips and clean edits, does not communicate properly how gross this topic actually is. I find it disappointing because Wright has shown in the past to put this kind of effort for much less. For the 2007 film Grindhouse, Wright directed a fake trailer called Don't, which evokes these old horror films, very similar to the inspirations of Last Night in Soho. Wright used vintage lenses and even scratched up the film reel by dragging it across a parking lot to make it look old school. They really should have done that for this. Without this visual aspect, it makes everything so clean that it underplays the film's main topic. This is going to be a hard pill to swallow for some, but sometimes making a movie look worse makes it better. This whole sequence then ends in a shitty jump scare.
You know you're not asleep.
I'm not going to comment on all of these, but they are pretty misused. Ellie starts slowly having a mental break, which doesn't seem to concern anyone, even to no one's surprise, the most understanding man on earth, John. I mean, not all men, am I right, fellas?
I mean, not all men.
Ellie talks to her gram, where we are reminded again her mother was mentally unwell and maybe was inherited by Ellie.
I know you think you have something to prove, but it's okay to ask for help. She didn't.
This whole plot point is just to have us question if Ellie is just schizophrenic and nothing supernatural is happening, but the answer ends up being kind of both. This movie is badly written if you couldn't tell by now. Terrence Stamp pops back up to talk to Ellie about feminist literature. Nope, he is just being creepy again. Wow, what a variety in these interactions. He's even lit by red light. Might as well name him Red Herring at this point.
The Red Herring. His name's Red Herring.
The movie then goes out of its way to highly imply Terrence Stamp is Jack all grown up. Well, it must be him. He is the right age and creepy. The movie keeps insisting he is creepy, so how could it not be him? I will be so shocked if it is not him. There is another sequence where Ellie is forcibly dragged into a vision. This one also breaks the established flow by covering multiple nights. Some may say I'm getting too hung up on the logic of how these time travel dreams work, but when it is the whole hook of your story, consistency is needed or it just comes off as cheap and lazy, which it does. The dream then starts spilling into the real world as these hazy ghost people like the ones from Pulse start appearing to Ellie. Her visions of these ghost people become more invasive as she goes to a Halloween party with John and then is highly implied to be drugged by Jocasta. She sees the pervy ghost man at the party and leaves with John to go have sex at her place. However, it seems the drugs make her see visions again where she witnesses Jack killing Sandy. Well, this just has to be real. I, as an audience member, am only smart enough to take things only at face value and not think ahead about anything. I mean, if PNG level CG blood can convince you, what will? Another thing that attributes to this film's pacing issues is lack of momentum. What is Ellie's goal? At first it seems to become more confident, but now it becomes I got to find Jack for some reason. I am not sure what she expects to accomplish. Hello, police. The 70-year-old man killed a woman 60 years ago and I have no proof. Arrest him. Like, I understand the appeal of Sandy, but I don't understand why Ellie cares so much. You could say solving the murder will make the vision stop, but there is no proof of that. It is hard as an audience to care about what is happening when we don't know what the stakes are. You can hand wave all you want, but it doesn't stop your movie from having no intrigue. Hate to spoil it, but even though the film insists Terrence Stamp is Jack, he is not. Once you eliminate him from the pool, there are no other suspects. Not only does this movie treat their audience like they are dumb, but doesn't care enough to provide any sort of actual layered mystery. Ellie then has another freak out, which no one questions or helps.
I'm not crazy!
She then, with her high intellect, goes to report this crime to the police, where she is dismissed as hysterical by Man Cop, who even makes fun of her with his buddies.
She says the killer drinks at the Took and narrows it down to me, you, and the whole rest of Soho.
I wonder what the movie is trying to say. So despite it being very clear what it is trying to communicate, the film's screenplay is so poorly written that this portrayal of something that real women go through every day is undercut by the reveal at the end. It's a real doozy, but we are close. While researching murders in the library, Ellie is once again conveniently haunted by perv ghosts. She then almost stabs Jocasta in the fucking eye. Even after this, somehow Ellie is not expelled, nor is John undeterred from helping her. Again. After she almost stabbed someone in the fucking eye. Maybe if this movie is placed in a more exaggerated reality, this could pass, but no, this is a serious movie. Ellie is running around with the ghosts again, where they once again feel the need to emphasize how evil Jack is.
Come back here, you slut! Get back here! Oh!
Thanks, I needed to know that. Ellie confronts Terrence Stamp at the bar and tries to get a confession from him, where he acts really creepy for truly no reason. This ends in a pretty clever way, as Ellie throughout the movie is almost hit by a car, usually near Terrence Stamp, who is then killed by being hit by a car. However, this moment is completely deflated by the poor dialogue revealing the big twist. Terrence Stamp isn't Jack.
In the middle of the street.
Oh, Lindsay, you poor bastard!
Because you may be an idiot, the film has the bar owner spell it out and even repeat his name twice, just so we know.
And his name's not Jack.
Jack? No, love. That's Lindsay.
Ellie, deciding the plot and stakes actually don't matter, decides to just go home. Which makes you wonder what was motivating her to look into this crime at all and not just leave. John takes her back to her apartment, where the next big, unbelievably unpredictable twist is revealed. The landlady is Sandy. Sandy has been murdering her abusers and stuffing them into the walls of the building. Now on paper, this is pretty cool. And Ellie, motivated completely to somehow avenge Sandy, would be pretty relieved to learn this. But instead of this being an empowering reveal, the film decides to portray Sandy as the villain. Let me repeat, they portray the sexual assault victim who killed her abusers as a villain. You can try to argue against this, but when you watch the reveal scene, take in the music and directing that is meant to frighten and unnerve you.
The papers call them missing persons. As far as I'm concerned, they were already lost. So they don't know where they are.
To further villainize poor Sandy, they have her drug Ellie, then try to kill her and John. Wow, what a great movie for women. Furthermore, this makes the man cop's point correct, as Ellie did have the wrong info about the murder. Great. Hoo boy, it gets worse somehow. Ellie retreats to the bedroom only to be confronted by the perv ghosts who beg her to help them by killing Sandy or trying to call the police. The film then tries to cast empathetic light on the abusive men who took advantage of her. Again, pay attention to the music, editing, and directing, and try to tell me I am wrong. I dare you.
No!
Look how when Sandy enters the room, all the creepy faded ghost beings are replaced by empathetic, scared human faces. And like most things in the movie, if you stop for 2 seconds to think about this, it doesn't make any sense. Were these ghost men giving her the visions? To motivate her? Why try to scare the shit out of her if you needed her help? I tried to write a part singing the praises to the film Paranorman that does this sort of twist much better, but it was too long-winded, so I'm going to just say, watch Paranorman. It is really good. Also, what happened to the whole Ellie getting a hickey thing? She is never affected physically by the dreams again. Also, who was this guy? Y'all seem to be making this up as you go along. However, upon seeing the ghost, Sandy feels bad about killing her abusers. This really happens. Ellie stops her from slitting her throat, then out of nowhere tries to make the connection that Ellie sees Sandy as like a surrogate for her mom, which makes zero sense. Sandy says Ellie needs to let go and let her die, but that line really is supposed to be telling Ellie to let go of her mother. This is so poorly done and does not click at all. Her mom is mentioned so far and in between that I forgot she was even brought up. Be honest. You forgot even I brought her up. Is this supposed to be a twist? Did you really reveal what motivates your main character throughout your movie in a twist? You just switched your metaphors in the clunkiest way possible. Anyway, kick-ass lady who killed sexual assaulters needs to kill herself, I guess. Then, in one final grasp of this movie's inane script, Ellie is shown comically being super successful and popular, even earning the respect of the mean girls. When I saw this, I thought it was a dream. She tried to stab a girl in the eye. She didn't study during finals, yet now she is thriving. Then the movie's final swing for this whole I see Sandy as my mom is that her mom illusions are replaced by Sandy for some reason, and then that's it. That's the end of the movie. I'm not sure what else there is to say. It has been a long time since I've seen a movie with clearly so much effort put into so many aspects be completely undermined and brought down by a dogshit screenplay. We have a horror movie that isn't scary, a mystery film with no mystery, and a feminist narrative with nothing new to say, while at the same time being actually bad at portraying women. Maybe Edgar Wright is ironically not the best writer? Get it? All his other films are co-written by Simon Pegg or based on an IP he can easily follow story-wise. I still respect Edgar Wright and I will watch his movies, but maybe just stick to directing, bud. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe and all the normal stuff. And if you liked this, check out some of my other content. Something I want to start doing with these videos where I'm a little bit more negative towards what I'm talking about is recommending other stuff that kind of fills the void of what this was trying to do. So I didn't get to do this with my Euphoria video, but I highly recommend checking out the movie The Fallout, which is very much about teen angst and Has a very Euphoria feel to it, but is still way better written than that last season was. My recommendation for this movie is the film Unsane by Steven Soderbergh. It's very slick and stylish, and also deals with the same themes of, you know, women not being believed, and I think it's just a much better film overall, and I was very surprised that people weren't in love with it when it came out. I thought it was pretty great. Again, thank you so much for watching the video. Please check out my other content. Please subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.